Algebra 2, today what we're going to talk about is multiplying and dividing exponents. So what we're going to do is we're going to be taking a term and multiplying it by another term that has the same base, just different exponents. Or they could be the same exponent, it doesn't matter. But when you multiply common bases, you're going to add the exponents. So this becomes x to the 8th, x to the 5th times x to the 3rd. Again, you add the 5 and the 3 becomes x to the 8th. It's very basic, so if I were to give you another one, let's add a couple more terms here. You have 5y to the 4th times negative 2y squared. Now in this case, what you're going to do is multiply the coefficients first. You always want to deal with coefficients. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. Now we have y to the 4th times y to the 2nd becomes y to the 6th. So again, these would be your answers for these problems. Okay. Now also, so if multiplying you add the exponents, when you divide x to the 5th over x squared, you're going to subtract. So this becomes 5 minus 2, so you have x to the 3rd. And another way of looking at that is x to the 5th is taking 5 x's and multiplying them together over 2 x's on bottom, and you'd cancel out, you're left with x to the 3rd. Okay, so that's just one way of looking at it. So let's do this. 6 x to the 9th, y to the 2nd, over 2 x to the 4th, y to the 8th. Now if I give you a problem like this, again, deal with the coefficients first. 6 divided by 2 is 3. You have 9 on top, 4 on bottom, so you always want to put your final exponent where there's larger exponents to begin with. So we have 9 minus 4 is 5, so x to the 5th. But notice here for the y's, you have a bigger number on bottom. That means your answer is going to stay on bottom. 8 minus 2 is 6. So again, I still subtract, but I go from the larger exponent, and then leave your answer where that is. 8 is in the bottom. So in the denominator, so we're going to leave y to the 6th in the denominator. So this would be your final answer. There's no more like terms to combine, and you're done. You cannot combine the x to the 5th and y to the 6th because they have different bases. Alright, so that's what you do when you're adding and subtracting. Now, what happens when you multiply? We just told you what to do. When you have an exponent on the outside of an exponent, you multiply. So this becomes x to the 3 times 4, which is x to the 12th. Again, when you have an exponent on the outside of an exponent, you multiply those. So if I were to give you this, 3x squared, y to the 3rd. Actually, you know what? This is a lot of going on this page. Let me, actually I'll just move down. Okay? So if I give you 3x squared, y to the 3rd, and then this parentheses is to the 4th. Notice that the 4 is not going towards the 3. The 3 is on the outside of this parentheses, so we're going to leave it on the outside. And now what you're going to do is you can distribute this 4, but again you're multiplying since it's on the outside of these exponents. So this becomes x to the 8th, 2 times 4, y to the 12th. And technically, we don't need that parentheses anymore there. So our final answer is 3 x to the 8th, y to the 12th. So again, let's make this a little bit tougher here. We have 2 x, y to the 3rd, and we're going to put that in parentheses to the 4th, times 3 x squared, y squared to the 3rd. Now the thing about exponents, when you have a coefficient on the inside, the exponent also goes to that. So that becomes 2 to the 4th. Okay, that becomes 2 to the 4th power. So it's 2, 4, 8, 16. So we have 16. I'm going to rewrite this, parentheses. 4 times 1 becomes x to the 4th. 4 times 3 becomes y to the 12th. Now this, again, the 3 goes to the 3. It's not 3 times 3, it's 3 to the 3rd power. 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. And then those both become x to the 6th, y to the 6th. Now you're not done. You have to be able to combine whatever you can. So now we're going to multiply. Now there's no more multiplying of exponents. Okay, so there's no more exponents on the outside, so we're going to add the exponents. But with our coefficients, we multiply. So you get 16 times 27, which is 432. Again, 16 times 27. We have x to the 4th times x to the 6th, so we add those, so it becomes x to the 10th. Y to the 12th times y to the 6th becomes y to the 18th, because 12 plus 6. So this would be your final answer for this problem. Okay? So let's do the same thing with dividing. Okay, with dividing, we have negative 2a squared over 5b to the 4th c. We're going to raise this all to the 3rd power. So again, since the negative 2 is on the inside, I raise it to the 3rd power. So negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 gives us negative 8. The 3 goes here, so it becomes a to the 6th. The 3 is also going to go to the 5 here. So you have 5 to the 3rd power, which is 125. B to the 12th. 4 times 3 is 12. And then 3 times 1 is c to the 3rd. Okay? Now, notice these are different bases, so you cannot combine those exponents. So you have to leave it the way it is. Now here, if it doesn't reduce on the inside with the coefficients, it won't reduce out here. So we know that we're done. Okay? So there you have it. And one last type of problem. So all of these problems that you see, the directions will be simplify. Okay? So the big direction here is simplify. You're not solving for anything, but there is going to be a section where it says solve. Okay? So you're going to solve for the variable. So if I give you an equation here, 5 to the 4x minus 2 is equal to 125. We want to solve for x. We need to get x by itself. So the way you do these problems is you have to represent 125 as a power you want to represent 125 as 5 to a certain power. So if you work that out, 125 is 5 times 5 times 5. So we could say this is 5 to the 3rd power. Okay? Again, 125 is 5 to the 3rd power. When you have the same base, you can actually just cross those out. So now we can say 4x minus 2 is equal to 3. I'm going to bring it up here. So now we just get x by itself, add 2. You get 4x is equal to 5. Lastly, we divide by 4. X is equal to 5/4. And that is your final answer. Okay? So that's how you do those. That's how we do multiplying and dividing of common bases. But what do you do with the exponents? Again, when you multiply, I erased it all. Oops. But when you multiply common bases, like x to the 6th times x to the 4th, you add the exponents, x to the 10th. 12 plus 6 is 18. When you divide, like we did here, 9 minus 4, you subtract, you get 5. And lastly, when you have an exponent on the outside, you multiply the exponents. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. I know it's quite a few rules to memorize, but I know you guys can do it. So good luck with that.